You've had a genius throughout your career for seeing opportunity, seeing white space and moving into it. And in moving to establish Thrive Global, you clearly saw an opportunity in almost medical terms about healing corporate culture. Can you talk a little bit about that transition and how you thought about that?
What I saw, and it's interesting because I also saw it at Uber, is that we are suffering from this delusion, both at the individual and at the corporate level, that in order to succeed, we need to burn out. And all the data, all the modern science shows that this is completely untrue. That in fact, in order to be most productive and most creative, we need to prioritize our own ability to recharge through sleep, through meditation, through pauses, through fly fishing, through golfing, whatever anybody does. That is not a bug of the human operating system, it's a feature. But in my work at Thrive Global, we've traced that delusion to the first industrial revolution, when we began to kind of worship machinery and the efficiency of machinery. And we thought that the way to make human beings more efficient was to minimize downtime. But that's not how human beings become more efficient. And now we're seeing the cost, the casualties. 75% of healthcare costs and healthcare problems are stress-related and preventable. So more and more companies are beginning to address that. And I created Thrive Global both to work with companies like Accenture, like JP Morgan, like Airbnb, to help produce thriving cultures where employees are not burned out in the course of working, which leads to higher attrition, which leads to more mistakes, and show the ROI, show the impact on the bottom line. And then a media platform that addresses consumers directly by bringing together the latest science on the subject and new role models. Because as you know, Nancy, human beings learn through a combination of data and storytelling. So one piece that we had on Thrive Global, for example, that Jeff Bezos wrote for us, went crazy viral because you had Jeff Bezos, an acknowledged leader in his field and many fields, who wrote a piece, and the headline was, "Why my getting 8 hours sleep is good for Amazon shareholders." And his analysis was that he knows that when he's not fully recharged, his decisions are 5 to 20%, he wrote, less good than when he's fully recharged. And of course, the best thing he can give Amazon is his decision making. And then Eric Schmidt wrote a piece last Monday saying a similar thing. And then cultural icons like Selena Gomez wrote about why she does a digital detox. So then all that is both available to consumers, but also to corporations, which makes it more interesting for the employees to feel they're part of a cultural change rather than just having HR telling them to eat their broccoli.
And yet it feels as though that understanding, that insight, and the data that supports it is self-evidently true, because all of us are experiencing what you're talking about in real time, of our own attention spans being constricted and our own ability to focus amidst so much distraction. And yet, as with any number of things that we're talking about today, where the cost of short-termism, the price that a company pays for not paying attention to this evidence, not paying attention to this data, is so significant. And yet it feels as though there are still profound cultural barriers, economic barriers, political barriers that prevent companies from embracing the kind of roadmap that you are laying out.
Absolutely. And that's why role models are so important. I mean, and we want Uber to be such a role model, because at Uber you can really see the connection between burnt out people acting out. We all have a continuum of behavior, right? I know that when I'm exhausted, I am more reactive, I'm less empathetic, I'm not as creative. I mean, I think we can all remember how we operate when we are running on empty. Now, when you're a 26-year-old engineer or manager, you may do worse than being reactive and not empathetic. And that acting out is at a very high cost to the business. Also, our cultural values included things which we changed on the day we announced the adoption of the Holder recommendations, we also announced changes in our cultural values, which are still ongoing, but the ones we announced on that day were, believe it or not, we had a cultural value which was being always on. Like, being always on is not the way human beings can operate at their best. So we lost that. And then there was a line that said working harder, smarter, longer. We lost longer because smarter and longer contradict each other. And then we did a kind of a symbolic renaming of the main conference room in the headquarters in San Francisco. It was called the War Room, and we renamed it the Peace Room.